So we are sorry for the bit of delay, but welcome to Isaka Square Tables. Today's is the webinar is with the title of "Improving any digital IT process can be easy in a real way." Before we start, I would like to let's say revise some housekeeping before we start. Please mute your microphone and stop sharing your video as soon as you enter the session. Make sure that the name that appears on Microsoft Teams is the same first name and last name used for the registration. This is for those requiring to get CPs. The presentation is being recorded, and the slides, there is no actual slides to be, let's say, released afterwards, but we will be releasing actually the actual session. If you need to have any questions, please raise the hand feature. We discovered from previous episodes that maybe you don't know where it is. Again, once more, welcome to the Isaka Square Table webinar hosted by Nuria and Isaka Dutch chapter. Today's speaker is a returning speaker. John has more than 25 years of experience in the market, leading multiple companies as well as important government, I guess US government departments, in doing like the business and perspective for processes, enhancing things. I would ask for John to introduce himself and also proceed with his presentation. John, please take over. Thank you.
Very good. Sound check and video check. You can hear me okay?
We can hear you okay, but you need to start sharing your screen, please.
Okay, let me go back in. And apologies to all the attendees. The delay was in me getting set up.
No worries at all.
I am here. And
John,
you should see my screen.
We can see your screen, but I think you forgot to remove the cover from the camera. Because we don't, yeah, now we see you. Okay. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to be working off of a different screen, so I may look at the camera sometimes. Other times I'm going to work at working off my screen, so you'll see my head go a little different. I have a new office set up, and when I attended with you guys a couple months ago to the Isaka chapter, it went very well and very smoothly. Today we have a few technical glitches, but I'm sharing my screen right now, and you should see the cover of the Isaka COBIT publication of implementation, optimizing, etc. in the COBIT 2019. Is that correct? You can see that?
I confirm that, John. Go ahead.
Okay,
please.
Very good. Thanks and welcome. And I would like to
I think we have a small problem with the video.
Dutch football and Johan Cruyff and the Dutch world, total football. So now we shift into total management of digital processes and information technology, and that's where Isaka comes in so strong. And today's presentation, we'd like to talk about how to improve any process across digital technology. Now, all of you with Isaka memberships have a CISA, a CISM, C-risk certificates. And so whether or not you're an auditor or a risk or a security person, this session, this square table session, is intended to provide you additional information that you might be able to share within your organization, not only to use for your job and your team, but to be an Isaka advocate with COBIT information to share with others to give them help on how they could improve any process. And this is one book in the COBIT 2019 series, which I feel is one of the most important because it provides generic guidance, which also can be used as a good guidebook or a playbook or a recipe book for improvement of any process. And you can tailor it however you like. This book is free to Isaka members. I would encourage you to download it and encourage others to download it. and consider having a meeting with other people in your organization to share this resource. This resource in this ISACA publication needs extra emphasis, and you can get it by going to the ISACA sites. And if I could, you can just go to isaca.org and find it. I'm going to switch my head, so you're just going to see, you're not going to see me, but you're just going to see this book cover of the implementation guide. And I think it's the best in the series because as I scroll down, I'm going to scroll down to not only the authors of this book. Let me show you, all the authors are in the acknowledgments section. And if you notice, the development team, University in Antwerp, Belgium, 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 Belgium. So these are people in your area that have built this guidance, and it's very high-powered consulting advice. And it's very important for anybody that has challenges in information technology to use this guidance as help to get better. And it's very good structured context. So the main things, and this is also covered a little bit in the COBIT Foundation exam, where there is a question on how to do implementations. And I also use the term improvement instead of implement. Yes, you can implement a governance and management system, but we also can say, let's just use this guidance for improving any process. So if you wanted to improve the risk management process or the audit management process, you could use this guidance to help. Or if you have significant audit findings, perhaps the process owner or the executives or the managers need some means to do an implementation of improvement or corrective actions. Any sort of issues can be dealt with using this generic guidance. So on the screen, I've got the table of contents. I'm scrolling down. It's only 78 pages, so it's not that long, but it's the depth and the breadth of the information is very important. And also, this is very similar to the guidance that we would find in ISO 20000, ISO 27000 for improvement. It also reflects ITIL content as well from the continuous service improvement books. So 78 pages into these chapters. There's not that many. There's only 6 chapters in the book, but some of the noteworthy diagrams, I'm gonna highlight key visual diagrams that can help. And there also is another COBIT exam, a certification, which combines the content of this book with the design guide. So overall, what we're trying to do is to align all of these activities to create value. And we hear that all the time, but that's a very high level construct. Across the entire product family of COBIT, this diagram, I don't expect you to see everything in here because it's kind of small. I can make it a little bit bigger. And we can see that we build on COBIT 2019 from what we found in COBIT 5. And then we had a lot of contributions from the community, people globally. And then all of these other publications, I'll scroll down here, these core publications, the framework book, the objectives book, the design guide, and the implementation guide. And that's what we're going to talk about here in this implementation guide. However, the design guide is very helpful, but it's quite complex. But I encourage you, if you're going to be a student of this subject, you should have familiarity with the design guide as well. So that's the overall look at the COBIT product family. I will switch my view a little bit here, and I'm going to scroll down to the next good artwork to reinforce. The target audience. The target audience could be just about anybody that wants to improve. Obviously, ISACA is focused on its own membership and CISA people, C-risk people, but I suggest it applies to anybody working in digital activities today. And as I said, there's the related guidance in the design guide. And then what's helpful in this book is the positioning of this entire conversation around governance. And remember, ISACA has clarity of the distinction between governance and management. And all these little talking points. I've used this book many times in executive presentations, and I've pulled content out of here to create the story of what we're doing. So I will use this content liberally to create presentations at the executive level. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit faster. And again, I encourage you to download a copy of this book for your own use and then share it with others. The principles, this is consistent with what we find across the COBIT family. And we want to have an end-to-end system of how all this fits together. We have framework principles. These are all high-level things. I'm not going to get into them in details because I want to give you the resources to make this stuff easier. So just keep in mind, you got to get the book, absolutely. But here's the way this book is organized. And we've got all these different roles, and we have RACI charts, responsible and accountable. And it's all in here, nicely laid out. And here's the core concept. We have these components. When we do improvement activities, we want to focus not only on managing the program or the project of improvement, but we want to look at the change enablers and the continual improvement activities. And so we're focused on the total picture, including of the people side of it and the cultural aspects, which are so important in any improvement initiative. We have to focus so much on the people and how they think and how they feel, and we want to be very respectful of that. So here's the graphic which shows those three component parts of program management, change enablement, and continual improvement. And that bullseye, those circles, then in other parts of the book, we start to get more detailed of what's happening in each of them. So I'll scroll down a little bit more. Okay, here's a roadmap of, as we work through those three component parts, that we have a life cycle of improvement, of working through what are the drivers, where are we today, where do we want to be tomorrow. So we have these 7 roadmap cycle items. And so this is more of the detail of these 3 component parts across the 7 life cycles. Very important to use this. And I've used this, I've cut and pasted this directly from my book into executive presentations or with other teams to start to socialize and share the constructs. So in each of these 7 phases in the book, it talks about the details. Lots of good language, which all of us encounter or anybody encounters in digital business today. What are the drivers? Maybe we have a new competitive environment. We have a reorganization with executive or new managers in reorganizations. And then we have to do some assessments of where we are today. And they can be quick and easy assessments, like people know that, well, we've got difficulty with the incident management process, or the server team needs to do better with its workflow. And we can do those assessments in where are we now. And as we look deeper in the book, we're going to find very specific guidance to help you so that you can become an expert on this topic. And that's what's great about this. It empowers you with extra information to be a leader. And professionally, that's all important for us. And we want to share as much as we can about these good practices and the details, working through these 7 life cycles. So let me scroll down a little bit more. I love this section about recognizing pain points and triggers. And we find these all the time. And If you can see it, okay, I'll make it a little bit bigger. The frustration, the significant incidents, the service delivery problems, contractual requirements, and for the auditors, regular audit findings and duplication of various initiatives. And so there's about a good list of things that we've looked at companies and organizations around the world, and we find these are happening everywhere. And so we have these generic pain points that I think all of us could work through the list and say, yes, we have that problem. Yes, we have this concern. Yes, we have that frustration. And you can use this content then to make your case and your stories better about what the opportunities are and what's driving it. These are the pain points. And then we can go down a little bit further, and these triggers, all details and all very specific to our industries that we encounter on a regular basis. And I think all of us recognize this language, but now you've got this resource from ISACA to help you. So those are the pain points and the triggers, and then how to engage with your stakeholders, all the different parties that are involved. You've got stakeholders internally and externally, especially. We've got a lot of details about their responsibilities and accountabilities in the improvement activities. All wonderful detail. This is hundreds and thousands of dollars of value, which is openly available to ISACA members. So you don't necessarily have to go hire a consultancy. You can become the consultancy, and you can go out wearing your ISACA hat. And here's what I've got. I've got my ISACA hat on right here. Okay, that's the old logo though, but I got a hat. And what did I have? I've got the book. I got the book right here in front of me. I always have that. I encourage you to get a copy. Internal and external stakeholders are here, and the role of the auditors is explained. Now we get into a little bit more detail. I'll drill down a little bit more. I love this section of the book because for each of these 7 phases, they talk about what the challenges are, what the root causes, and the success factors for each of the 7 phases. So occasionally we have lack of senior management buy-in and commitment for improvement activities. Okay, we know what the root causes are. We know what some success factors are. Now again, you can use this guidance not only for an overall governance and management improvement initiative, but helping improve any process. And so for each of the 7 life cycle phases, we have this detail of challenges, root causes, and success factors. This is outstanding content that you can use. I'll keep going down. So it's all through the 7 phases of these things. Let me find one of my favorites here is in phase 4 of what needs to be done. Well, often we have senior management that has no idea of what COVID is, or they dismiss COVID, but yet it's so important. So I encourage each of you to be advocates for ISACA and sharing of COVID content, because people don't know what they don't know. They've got inadequate skills and knowledge. Okay, maybe you set up an overview session of COVID content, and or get some additional help. And that's kind of that second bullet right now. I'm providing you external support. I would also encourage you, if you're on LinkedIn, send me an invite. I'll connect with you, and I would be happy to share with you anything I know. That I'm an ISACA member in the United States in my Minnesota chapter. It's one of the largest chapters in the United States. I've held a variety of positions within our board, and then I also am the advocate with academic and university organizations to share, and I frequently speak on this topic of ISACA and COVID at the university levels. So that's a lot of the detail of the challenges, root causes, and success factors. Great guidance in here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more, and I know that this is going to be a fast overview, but I know all you guys as ISACA members, you're very seasoned, you're very knowledgeable, and you can absorb this content quickly. And for some of you, this might just be a reminder of content. Coming back to all those 7 phases of challenges, root causes, etc. Next, the need for change enablement. Lot of detail and a lot of words here, but I think this is one of the most important parts, what you see on the screen right now. And this content also was found in the ITIL book series for continual service improvement. And it's important that as we do any improvement initiative, we want to establish this sense of urgency. And you see this list of 8 items. And from my personal experience and academic research, this list of 8 items is very important. And sometimes what we fail on is we don't address these 8 items in this order. It's very important to consider that we should address these topics in the order that they are listed. And we don't want to skip one. So I can certainly communicate a vision of improvement, but if there's no sense of urgency, it's not going to go anywhere. And so you will increase the risk if you don't follow this sort of step by step. And this is very supportive of what we find in the international standards for improvement of Plan, Do, Check, Act. But this certainly focuses a lot extra on the people side. And with that, I'm going to catch my breath and ask Ramsey, do we have any questions, or how are we doing?
Actually, we don't, but I do have a question.
Go ahead, please.
I see like basically these 8 steps is like, first of all, establish priority. I mean, I'm reading it in a different manner, so I'm asking if that interpretation is right. It's like, first of all, establish a priority that change has to happen. Second one is basically find your allies, because you need people to or get the buy-ins. Maybe it's written in a better way, powerful guiding coalition, but it is buy-in from stakeholders, right? And the third one is like, you need to have a vision and mission, and maybe even a plan. So this is 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then, you need to put the improvements into one, as we like to call it these days, one drop per time. And at the end, you just ingrain the whole life cycle approach. Is it a good kind of reading for this 8 steps?
Absolutely. You can have your interpretation, but I think that urgency is it's got to be given a high priority in the organization. And so we'll find a little bit more detail about this. I'll show you how these things get expressed with some additional detail, but your interpretation, Ramsey, is very good.
Okay,
so
excellent.
Thank you for the comments, and please just jump in any additional times, and we can go in detail. So back to that diagram where we have the 3 component parts in 7 different life cycles. Okay, very important: program management, change enablement, and continual improvement across the 7. Okay, so first of all, in phase 1, we have to establish a desire to change. We have to form teams, communicate, identify the quick wins, enable operation and use. 6 and 7, make it happen. Continue to do it. So that's the 7 phases. Again, I'm going to scroll down a little bit further. Now we come back into the detail of the implementation life cycle. So for each of these, we're going to have details about the objective, the description, the CI tasks, continual improvement, the CE tasks, the program management, examples of inputs and outputs, and other ISACA tools. So it's really a great detailed reference to help you. And again, so the book then starts out with the details. What are the drivers? In phase 1, it's going to go into those 3 component parts. First of all, then with the roles, who should be involved. And then we'll get into the objective, the description, and here's where I love this. For this continual improvement tasks. We've got these 7 detailed items listed here, and it's wonderful. Somebody else already figured this out. They wrote it down, and they're going to share it. And as a benefit to ISACA members, you have access to this. And what we find in many organizations, people are trying to do this all the time, but they make up their own approaches, which is great. And we want to give them compliments to do such a great job to create their own content on this. But typically they spend millions of dollars creating this, and then sometimes it works, other times it doesn't work. So this is a consistent resource of good practices. The CE tasks, we have 10 of them in phase 1. For the program management tasks, these are the activities that a project manager might pay attention to. And then we have inputs, ISACA resources, and outputs. Then we have across what we saw in these 3 component parts. I'll give you an example of the CI tasks. We see 7 of them here. But what ISACA has done in the book is we've taken that list of 7, which is all the details, and then we break it down in this list where I might have only the most important continual improvement tasks. CI1, here you see CI1, I'll make it a little bit bigger. CI1, identify issues. I'm going to scroll back up here and you'll see item right now, identify the issues right there. So this other list is the key activities. If you don't want to do everything, these are the key activities and who should do them. And you notice here we have a governance board, but you may interpret that differently in your organization, and it might be a senior leadership team, or it might be the improvement committee, or it might be a Six Sigma team or a lean team that helps use this content. And you see the audit people there, the risk people, that's all of us, but you can help share this information. Take off your CISA hat and say, I'm going to just be an ISACA advocate and share this with people that might want to improve. So that's the RACI chart for each. And then phase 2, we get into the same sort of format where the details of the 3 component parts are included along with the roles, and then the objective, the descriptions, and then the details. So in this phase 2, we have a big emphasis on assessing the current state. And we might talk about the maturity levels or the capability levels, that 0 through 5 construct that we find in CMMI or ISO 33000, or previously known as ISO 15504, which was process capability. And all of that detail is in here to help you become much more educated. And in some cases, if you know this information, you will be the expert in your organization. And so you can't just wear your C-RISC or CISA hat as an auditor, but be an ISACA advocate and share this information. Perhaps you could do a lunch and learn or some sort of information sharing, all these different details. That's how it works out. Let me scroll down a little bit further. And my favorite, a lot of times organizations jump into what they want to do. Okay, they don't worry too much about the what are the drivers and where are we now, but they just jump into what needs to be done. And that's cool in phase 4. Let me go down to phase 4. But what I'm always advocating is that if you want to jump straight into doing an improvement initiative and just focus on what we need to do, you're missing the opportunity. You have to take into account the topics which were addressed in the previous cycles of what are the drivers, where are we today, things like that. all of these things should be taken into consideration and communicated with the appropriate teams. Ramsey, any questions? Anybody?
Up till now, not, but I encourage our members, if they would like, please unmute yourself and ask a question directly to John.
Yes, please. I'm going to ask you, definitely. I encourage questions, something I know we have a very experienced audience, and there's got to be questions out there. So please put them in the chat. Ramsey, you watch the chat. If anything comes up, and you can ask the question too.
I'm actually doing that. Yep.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
The continual improvement tasks, there's a lot of them in there, but you can pick out and choose whatever you want. Again, this does not have to be prescriptive guidance, but you can pick and choose what can help you. So let me see if I can find any other components here that are, it just follows that same level of detail through each of the 7 life cycle phases and the 3 component parts. I love the fact that the inputs are provided, the things that you should consider that you might need to gather to support your improvement initiatives, and then the outputs of things that you should be producing. These might be deliverables, and then the ISACA resources that can help you. Again, ISACA has done wonderful things with this content to provide you this level of detail that you might have to pay millions of dollars to an outside consultancy. But I think I can say confidently that there are very few people in the organization that you work for or with that have this level of knowledge and awareness, let alone the skills to perform the tasks. And you can become very much empowered to improve your standing in your organization or your personal knowledge. Let's see what else we got. These are all the 7 phases. Now, ISACA does some interesting things. Let me see if I can pull over another window in here and see. Ramsey, you should be able to see. I changed the screen a little bit.
Yep. Now we have your browser. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna go from the ISACA site to, I'm going to search on the ISACA site, and we all have access to this. You can search on the Engage forums, and this is an interesting thing that I did to help you guys with content so that you could do something with this. You might think, oh, the books are nice, I like the PDF, but I can't do anything with the PDF. So what I tried to do is to give you some of that. So you could go into the ISACA site, and you can go into the Engage online forums, and that Engage site, once you get signed in, let me just sign in. I had to reboot quickly on the fly here before we started. Thank you for your patience. I go into the communities and the online forums, and I can search the online forums for COBIT and frameworks.
Okay.
And sometimes it's hard to navigate things in ISACA, but you can find a lot of great information if you take the time to go look for things. There's a section in here called the library in this Engage. I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can see this. Make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. There's a library in here with folder content, okay? What I did is I took the entire book and I said, well, what can I do with it? And so I translated it into a spreadsheet that you could download. So ISACA members can go and download this for free. And this is all of that level of detail. Let me see if I can do something with it here. Come on. It takes you to another screen, and then I can download this content. Let's give it and look at, somebody commented, thanks, very useful.
Yeah, that's me. I was following your steps just to go to the exact place, copy it and paste it for our audience.
We'll give you a trophy.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you, sir. Thank you. Let me pop this thing open. It's here. Excel spreadsheet. This was not done by Isaka. I created this one. So I've got all the content from the book in here. Make it a little bit bigger. View. And zoom it. Let's go up a little bit here. And my Microsoft mouse is not cooperating today. So here, the way I have it laid in, you could download this spreadsheet and import it into a Microsoft project plan. And that saves you some time. So as another ISACA member, I'm trying to help you guys and all of us, because if we can help one another, we're all better off. So feel free to download this. What I've also done with this is I imported it into a ServiceNow instance using ServiceNow project and program management, PPM, that I put this in there, and I saved it as a template, and then I saved it as different versions. So I had a detailed implementation plan, a medium, and a small, depending on the level. This particular view is just the key activities, as we saw in the book. So I hope you find that helpful, and if you do, feel free to download it. It can be very helpful. So anybody have any questions at this point in time? Someone must have a question out there, because I know this is a good audience. Anybody, I dare you.
Up till now, John, there is nothing on the chat, but I would like to remind everyone to unmute and go ahead and ask the question, please.
Yeah, and Ramsey, as a facilitator, and you understand this topic pretty well, what questions might we have? You make up a question, and we'll just role play this out of what might be helpful for this conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna work as, let's say, the person working for an organization and having challenges changing, for example, the change management process. I'm gonna take an example. Especially change management is something that is under continuous improvement. When you think about it, it's always something that you could revisit and enhance something or get a new perspective on. And the question is, following the principles from like COVID, how would we attack such a problem, especially if we have some stakeholders who are thinking, we did it like that for a very long time, and maybe it makes sense to keep it as it is because it's working. I guess in the IT world, this is the slogan that a lot of management are into. Like, as long as this has been working for a long time, touching it might result in a problem. I see your smile. So I guess you heard that before. Yes. And maybe we could see how we help in that one.
We hear it all the time that my organization, this is business as usual. We're not going to change the process. So I ask the question always, how good are you today? How good is your team? Do you think your team could get better? It's like the football coach. The football coach can't just say, well, we're not losing all of our games, so we're okay. But the football coach says, no, we want to win the European championships. How do we get better? Well, we're going to have to adopt good practices. We're going to have to make sure that we work through an improvement plan to make sure every player is the best and the team is the best. And what we find often is, for change management, yes, organizations might have their ways of doing things, but then we can stimulate the conversation of how good are you? And when you respond to how good you are, I'd like to ask you, relative to what model? Because you might say, oh, my maturity level is 2. I always ask the follow-up question, well, that's 2 is very interesting. Why do you say 2? Do you have a measurement model that you're using to base the number 2 on? Or are you just making it up? And that's
I,
where I saw. Go ahead, Ramsey.
yeah, I was going to say, I guess most people, when they say like the maturity level is level 2, they're referring to the CMMI, which is now I think owned by Zaka, if I'm not mistaken. So that's my guess. I was just trying to answer the question.
Absolutely, and it's interesting to note that ISACA does own CMMI, and let's zero in on this relative to change management. So I went back to the COBIT 2019 Governance and Management book for the objectives on managed changes, and it's BAI 06. And all of us should have a copy of this book, and it is the absolute best desk reference in the industry for standards. And so it's very simple of the description and the objective. And I use this content as policy, because regardless of the reorganizations, this is consistent policy content. So if I scroll down, I've got these. Let me go further down, and I'm going to. So relative to your question about what we have, business as usual. And then I have some other things. I compare it to this list of 4 management practices. Now I can bring this content in and say, I want to run an improvement initiative against managed changes. So I'm going to look at the 7 life cycles and say, do we have any drivers to improve change management? And if there's no drivers, then I'm going to say, okay, fine, keep doing it the way you want. Or if the chief technology officer has said, no, we've had too many emergency changes. Someone's got to focus on this too many emergency changes. So we can start to use this content and use it with the implementation guide as the driver and the assessment and the roadmap and the plans and et cetera, and sustaining it. So ISACA fits all of this content together by those people that we saw listed from Belgium, predominantly University of Antwerp and PwC in Belgium. Very smart people and very refined. This implementation book was first came out probably in about over 10 years ago, and it's just been continued to be refined and get better and better. So as I work through the improvements for change management, I'm also then, as I'm doing my assessments, I might be looking at the inputs and outputs, the establishment of base practices and activities, and then I might even be able to use the reference of the capability levels, which are shown in the management practices. Yep. This is helpful guidance. We see some indication of when these activities might be apparent. Now, I make the suggestion, if I was the process owner for change management, I want to do it just like this, period. Because that way I know it's consistent. And it's what we see in platforms like ServiceNow or HP or Sharewell, we see this same content expressed in those tools. Ramsey, question, comment?
Well, it's not a comment. I would say if we have enough time, I would like to emphasize on something that maybe might be useful for this conversation. The main reason I popped up the change management, because some organizations already finished going from the traditional way to being Agile, or even to being DevOps, DevSecOps, DevNet. I mean, there are other models, and some are, and I think not a small amount of organizations are a bit struggling, especially for change management. That's why I mentioned that. So in the light of talking about the new way of doing operations, basically, I guess a lot of people will be revisiting their change management process, especially to make it compliant with the amount of changes required for example, for a DevOps environment. Maybe we can discuss that a little bit in more details. If you're gonna have 4,000 changes a year, which is possible in some organizations in the normal, or let's say classical way, where even COBIT 5 or even earlier would still fit somehow. Nowadays with DevOps, sometimes you can have the same amount of pulls and pushes for the source code, and sometimes even for containers a day. So definitely all the checkboxes inside the change management process, all the quality parts, which are needed, don't get me wrong, are changing fundamentally on how you execute them. What's your view on that in regards to what we're discussing, like how we can enhance the processes?
That's really good. And I would like to then condense your comment and say, does this guidance provide relevance to an emerging Agile and DevOps environment?
Yep, that would be an excellent maybe
Right.
summarization to my question. Yeah.
My personal perspective is that ISACA's COBIT guidance still is extremely helpful in those environments. However, the pace of the continual improvement, continual delivery is accelerating. So if people are still trying to make it up, that's a challenge because everything is going faster and faster. And I'll give you an example with auditors or the testers in the CI/CD space. The tester role could evolve to become much less because we're going to automate that testing. And then for the auditors, perhaps we automate all of that evidence collection and reporting. Is similar, but all of this ISACA content still holds at a high enough level. You might get more granular detail about something of using containers or whatever, but ISACA's COBIT guidance is at such a high level that it still can apply. That's my perspective. ISACA will be coming out with a new publication, hopefully very soon, and it's COBIT for DevOps.
Nice.
It will be a new publication, and I had the good fortune to be a part of the development team on that, and it should be published any month now. So watch for that publication, and that starts to get into it. But I think a lot of that focus that we had was more about the culture of the organization accepting that you have to go faster and you have to do more changes more rapidly, CI/CD, but continuous everything, automate everything possible, do continuous automation, continuous improvement. And that's where I say this book is continual improvement. I've got these seven phases. I keep going through them. So if I'm a developer, I'm not going to be worried too much about this. But some of the executives and the managers have to understand how to set the stage, the appropriate environment to empower those Agile constructs. Agile philosophies certainly can do that themselves, but this gives you extra information to broaden it and deepen the conversation. I hope that helps. Thank you for that topic. That's a very good segue. We got about 7 minutes left. Let's open it up and see if we have any additional questions or comments.
Yep. So our audience, please, if you have any questions, you are very welcome to unmute and shoot your question directly. Or if you would like to type it, I can read it for John's sake. Hello. We're welcoming more questions then.
How many participants do we have?
56 today.
56. And out of that 56 of really smart, hardworking people, we got to come up with 2 questions before the top of the hour. Come on, you folks. Otherwise, I'm going to say, who is the most likely opponent for the football team on Sunday?
Good question. I'm unfortunately not that much into football, John, so I wouldn't be able to answer. I would ask my attendees if you guys can help with that one. At least with what's the next possible opponent.
And while we work on that, on my screen, what I'm sharing right now is I took the entire book, just like I gave you the spreadsheet. This is another view that I put into PowerPoint, and I did this artwork myself. I'll make it bigger. And this was just one slide that I did that I could have everything together in one place. I took the whole book and put it in one slide. I got my key activities, the inputs and outputs, and what I have to do for each of those. And I've used this in the real world a couple of times. where I was asked to support improvement initiatives, and I went and listened to the meetings, and I was struck by the lack of structure and context to how they had organized their improvement activities. And so I made the suggestion of, how about if for everything in our improvement initiative, we use this guidance so everybody has the same reference point of what we're trying to do. And then actually this led me to create the project plan where each of the activities had a work breakdown structure identifier. So if somebody wanted to know what they were working on for the improvement, we could go back to that spreadsheet and we could identify in the first column A, I could say, okay, 1.1.1, have we done that? And it really helped out. And we could just pick out which ones we liked, and some of them we did, and some of them we just ignored. But it really gave us a standard view, context and structure, and content for consistency. So that's what I wish to leave all of you with, to use these ISACA resources and go find this content on the Engage section if you desire. And I think that's about it. Maybe we'll have a couple of questions or closing comments. Ramsey, that...
I want to take over, and first of all, want to thank you so much, John. An excellent overview of the process enhancement, and I have to say, like, the discussion for the Agile part was really, really helpful, knowing that there is going to be a very soon to be out publication. That's really good. So I would like to thank you on behalf of the ISACA Netherlands chapter and Nuria. And I would also like to remind our attendees, next Square Table is going to be in Dutch. So it's going to be June 30th. It's cyber risk, and excuse me because my Dutch is not the best, but you guys can read all about it in the ISACA Square Tables entry on the website. Derek Deist and Dennis Van Heest are going to be the speakers next time. And with that, I would like to thank you so much and hope to see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you.